Welcome back, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for VRM Live. If this is your first session that you've seen today, we are joined by some pretty famous people. We have got the host of the Sarah and T podcast, Sarah Bradford and Tim Cafferty. And we have Michelle Hodges, who is the COO of Snyder Vacation Rentals and Gulf Shores.
I think Michelle's phone's giving feedback.
Yeah, it's not good.
Urban aliens seize her body.
Yeah, aliens and Gulf Shores.
Can y'all hear me?
No. Or we can hear you. It just sounds like an alien.
Garbled.
It's okay. We'll get back to Michelle. Because one thing I know about Michelle is she'll figure it out. Like, she's the most resourceful girl I know. So anyway, Tim and Sarah, have you listened to any of this yet? Of anything that we've been talking about today? So we've had, we started out, with Jeremy and Mike Harrington, and then we talked to some data people and pundits, kind of like talking about the macro, what they were seeing from their viewpoint. Then we heard from Ben and then Jim Olin and J.R. Matthews from Trigon Capital about private equity and some of the acquisition and M&A activity from Kevin Groff from U.S. Bank. And then we talked to Clark Twitty and Scott Bunce, Clark Twitty from Twitty and Company, Scott Bunce from Cabins for You in Gatlinburg, and Josh Marquis from Retreatia in Steamboat. And so what I wanted to do here is I really wanted to really more personalize what some of these small businesses are going through. And I think, Tim, you and Sarah have just done such an amazing job at being so empathetic to this audience and really giving a voice to the true challenges and joy of owning a vacation rental management company, and in a very professional way. And I think that you guys have also really added to some of the calm and sanity in our industry and really brought to the forefront what it means to be a professional property manager. And so what I'm going to do is, and I was just telling them, we have not scripted this session. This is going to be a very colloquial, discussion-oriented conversation. So I do have on the screen, you can see, you can text your questions to me. There's also a question pane on here. So anything that you want to ask Sarah or Tim, and also Michelle, did you make it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there she is. Welcome, Michelle. Okay. About what's going on. So Michelle, you and I are from the same market, and we were talking a little bit about some of the other challenges that we face there, and in particular, we're talking about the oil spill. If you could compare and contrast, this situation to what you've dealt with in the past with the oil spill, how would you look at it?
Well, they're both unexpected. We, being on the coast, had become accustomed to handling emergencies, and our definition of that up until 2010 was tropical events. We were experts. You know when they're coming. You can anticipate how strong they're going to be. You know about what your recovery time is going to be. And in 2010, we were really taken aback by the first man-made disaster we had to get through. It was frustrating. At the same time that you had business impact, you had a company saying, quote unquote, we're here to make you whole. And there was a process to go through to help get some revenue back. And this virus, I don't know, 6 months ago or really 6 weeks ago that any of us could have anticipated something so unknown disrupting our businesses to this degree. So in terms of shock factor, they're similar. And you have the government stepping in saying we're going to try to create these economic stimulus programs to assist you and payroll programs to assist you. And those of us going through that know it's somewhat frustrating and seems to be ever evolving. So There are some similarities, but they're also very distinct in their own ways.
I think that everybody's kind of trying to draw into, some parallel from our experience to try to forecast and figure out how, this whole industry is going to come out of it. The cancellation policies, I thought it was interesting how our industry reacted. Tim, were you not surprised that we saw so much early refunding in this, as this started moving forward compared to what, in relation to what we've done in the industry in the past?
Yeah, thanks for that. And let me just say, you mentioned at the beginning, had I been listening, I've been listening throughout the day, and I also saw the last webinar where my good friend Clark Twitty was wearing a jacket. So not to be outdone, I have my jacket on today as well, in homage to Clark. And
What
I
is
hope that the pin is an Outer Banks. So welcome to the Outer Banks pin. It was when I chairman of the tourism board here, I made these pins and handed them out like Johnny Appleseed. So I still wear them. But at any rate, I think my thought about that question, Amy, is I'm not sure a lot of us took it seriously at first, and we talked about that on our podcast somewhat. I remember Sarah and I talking a few weeks prior to the resort being closed down, which I know she's going to address here in a bit. And it was really sad for those people in Europe, and gosh, I'd hate to be managing rentals in Italy. And then all of a sudden it's here. And I was just looking here on the Johns Hopkins website, 629,000 cases later, leading the world. I think a lot of us have had a change of mindset from the very beginning where we thought it would just go away and people would still come and it's not really going to affect us, into the point I'm not aware of anyone that hasn't been disastrously infected. And so we really had a change of perception on this in the last 45 days.
Sarah, I heard you say that you just had to do the right thing. And I've heard that a few times, but I've heard it said about different ways of making a decision. Like some people thought doing the right thing was actually protecting their homeowners and trying to give vouchers and credits for future stays. And some people thought doing the right thing was giving money back to people who need it right now, who had paid for vacations prior. And it's got to be such a personal thing about what the right thing is to do. But was there not any best practice here? Was there any way that if this were to happen again, do you think that we'll have a best practice for this going forward?
Well, first of all, when it started happening before the resort closed, we just started giving refunds because we were like, oh, these few people that can't make it, let's just make them love us. And then all of a sudden the resort closed and we were like, okay, we can't refund all of these people. This is not okay. So we had to change gears. So saying what would I do if this happened again, get a lot more seriously. Tim and I were thinking it wouldn't, I don't know why we thought that. I'm not a super forward thinker in general.
Oh my gosh, we had a Gatlinburg conference on February 26th, a whole entire 250 property managers, and this didn't even come up. I have a panel, which it's in a video on this thing, and I said, so do you think there are any existential threats facing the vacation rental industry right now? And it was like, well, no, we're strong. It did not even come up.
Yeah, so it hit
later.
It hit like a ton of bricks, right? And that's what I keep telling Tim is, hey, Tim, I've lived through it. I want to tell you about it from at least living through it happening all around me with our height of our season. But in terms of how do you do the right thing, we have a really strict cancellation policy. If you had called us 3 months ago and said, I'm canceling for next week, we'd be like, sorry, did you buy travel insurance? You're out of money. Like no refund at all. So to pivot that fast was super hard. But we not only were trying to figure out what's best for our owners and our guests, selfishly, we were trying to figure out what's best for our company. And what we decided was that if we make a bunch of enemies and stick with some tough cancellation policy right out of the gate, there are only so many guests that come to Winter Park and Steamboat, and those guests love us. We just annihilated all the March like the March and April guests that come to us every year. Why would we alienate all of them? And so we went with this kind of credit / refund concept. And in general, I would say we did not make really any enemies. We had this one joke, not joke, but at one point in the middle of the drama, I said to Amy, my head of reservations, do we have any haters right now? And she said, we have a list of 10 haters. And I was like, send them to me. And so she sent me the 10 haters in the spreadsheet, and I added up the total revenue, and it was like, I don't know, $45,000 or something, maybe 30, something substantial. And I just called each one and I said, I'm sorry that we caused you so much stress. I'm the owner of the company, and I'm going to make an exception here and give you your money back. It was the easiest and best thing ever I had to do. But I just thought, let's turn the haters into loving us. And they were like, thank you so much. And those people will come back versus keeping their money. And what does that get me? Because I can't use it anyway.
Are you going to track to see if they do come back?
Oh, yeah. I was just talking about how the people we refunded, that's a small amount, probably 20% we refunded.
Yeah.
We've created a separate list in our email system just for them to remarket to them, because they should love us.
They should owe you. You owe me. Michelle, for doing the right thing for you, what does that look like?
I relate to Sarah and Tim completely. When this started, we actually had an uptick in reservations from folks who were not going abroad and were adjusting their larger spring trips to come
Oh, they went to
to
the
the
beach
Gulf.
because it was a ski resort.
Right. So I will say we fell into the trap as well of not taking it all that seriously initially. So when it did get a bit more serious, we offered our guests who were inside of their cancellation policy, even if they didn't have travel insurance, the opportunity to change their date for any point in time in the next year or receive a future voucher. And in Alabama, we're an escrow state, so those funds don't belong to us. So it was a bit of a balancing act, and not everyone, we had some haters like Sarah, not everyone appreciated that flexibility. I would say the large majority of our guests did, and they were grateful for that. On April 4th, our governors issued a stay-at-home order and limited any travel that wasn't essential. So after that point in time, we did extend refunds to arrivals between April 4th and the 30th.
So now, what is the situation in Gulf Shores right now?
Right now, our beaches are closed. We actually have a press conference with the governor tomorrow, and we're hoping that as of May 1st, our private beaches will open up again, which would be our beach homes and our condominiums, and that they'll restrict public beach access to exercise only and open up restaurants again to 50% capacity. That's what we're hoping to hear tomorrow. But as of right now, it's essential travel only.
Tim, you guys closed the beach and closed the bridge essentially in the Outer Banks. Is it my understanding that the homeowners cannot come to their homes either?
That's correct, Amy. On March the 17th, our control group, our emergency control group, is made up of the mayors of the 5 towns here, the chairman of county commissioners, our park service superintendent, and a couple of other representatives with the sheriff, that they decided that it would be best for guests not to come. It was so interesting how it worked, because we're used to hurricane evacuations. We're used to mandatory evacuations. There was no evacuation order called. It was just, we're not allowing new people on. So we had guests who were here. They could complete their stay. And we had some guests call and say, can I book it for 2 more weeks? So that put us in a dilemma. Can we just stay? And then we had on that Friday, on the 20th at 9:30 at night, the control group decided to then ban non-resident property owners. And so it was clearly to me, it seemed anyway, I'll just say my opinion, is that the local voting contingency got a hold of those people who are in political office and saying, you need to get those people and their diseases out of here. And I'm not paraphrasing, because that was the mentality. And I know you addressed this in the last session, so I don't want to get there. But yeah, as it stands now, the craziness is we could still have essential personnel come across the bridge. So my employees, essential personnel, vendors can come across the bridge. So literally, we have a scenario right now, Amy, where if I'm a local, I can leave the beach, I can drive to New York City, and I can come back with no restrictions. If I am a property owner, I can have a vendor from Virginia Beach or Richmond come to the Outer Banks, deliver a refrigerator, work on my deck. But I, as a property owner, cannot come to the beach. And so there's been 6 property owners file a lawsuit against the county. They have 21 days to respond. Quite frankly, in 21 days, it's probably not going to be an issue, because the pressure is really turning up on our local officials to at least maybe not flip the switch to turn it back on business, but at least turn the dimmer switch up a little bit. It's crazy. It really is.
Sarah, I mean, 'cause I do think this travel shaming is just still baffling to me. Are you having a lot of this weird reaction from the locals in Winter Park and Steamboat?
We did at first, but I'm not worried about that now, because we wouldn't have anyone here anyway. So there's no shaming to be done, even if we didn't have coronavirus. It's snowing out and there's no ski resorts open, and they wouldn't even be open in April. So we saw that too. I think it comes from those people that always want tourists to leave, and they just saw this as their chance to go crazy on it. And a few voices made all these mandates to stop rentals. Like in Steamboat, they did this, you can't stop short-term rentals for a month. And that's fine. I just was saying to the officials, don't worry, we don't have any rentals. Like, this is not where you need to spend your time and your energy, because nobody's renting anyway.
I have several questions coming in, actually. One is, you're so hard to read.
You seem very surprised.
I'm very grateful. Like, I've asked so many questions today. Let's see. Our location is under a stay-at-home order implemented by our governor. Non-essential businesses are not allowed to operate through May 4th. We have closed down all of our homes, but we continue to see individual homeowners renting their homes, as well as some of the large players like Evolve and Vacasa. I would love to get back in the game. Any recommendations based on what you guys are going through? When other people aren't doing it, unless when you're not doing it, other people are, it does make it really difficult.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate here, but I can speak to this from personal experience, because as I was introduced, I have 2 companies. I have the Outer Banks, which we're having the roadblock, but I also have Sandbridge in Virginia Beach. And there, God bless the governor, was not clear on his executive order number 55. And so I made the decision to not honor rentals for the month of April. That was my policy and my decision for my company. 3 of my competitors continue to welcome guests, and owners continue to welcome guests. What I have said is I want to be on the right side of history. And it was not the right thing to welcome those people. They did not want to be here. The experience was not what they had reserved when they booked the house months ago. The beach is closed. Restaurants are closed except for takeout. As you say, non-essential businesses are closed. And when they get there, neighbors are looking over their railing going, what are you doing here? And so, yeah, you can get back in the game, but I think, what happens to you is one thing, but how you react to it is quite another thing. And you need to think very clearly about the long term here. And I believe, this is not a marketing pitch, but I believe we will be paid off in the long run for doing the right thing.
Does anyone else want to add to that before I move?
Well, I agree. I mean, I don't want to be seen by the community as breaking the rules, even if people wanted to come here. And this is a time when you want to join with your community leaders. You want to be a voice. You want to be asking them how you can help and be seen in that way by locals, by realtors, etc. Also, you know, with this paycheck protection program and all this, I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear how Tim and others are handling it, because where we are, we're just like, forget the guests, let's get to deep cleans and working on the properties. I think even if it was allowed, bringing a few guests in right now would be so complicated. Like, I don't want my employees going to have to hand them towels and all that weirdness, you know? And so, but I know it's hard in the beach community. It must be tough because this is when your season starts up, you know, where we can easily just power down until July.
That leads
And
to
so
another.
for us,
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
sorry, Amy.
No,
I was
no,
going
go
to
ahead.
say in Florida, we cannot accept bookings. We would allow bookings for our Alabama Gulf Coast properties, but we put a disclaimer. It's not a disclaimer, it's a request. It's a travel safe message on our website. I can't identify or vet if someone's essential travel, if they're coming here to be with their family, their parents or grandparents, but we would certainly rent to someone in that category. But we are asking them to avoid traveling or postpone their plans to travel if they fall under some of those CDC requirements. And a conversation that I've had here recently, especially as we talk about reopening the economy, is personal responsibility. As the economy does reopen, as our properties do become available, we are all going to come out of this at different times. And each individual, each of us as humans, have different environments and different scenarios. And so it'll be up to us to encourage our vacationers and our guests to travel safe when the time is right. If you're going to book a property, you know, make sure that you aren't ill, that you're not coughing, that you haven't been somewhere that puts you at risk in the last 14 days. So we are creating that message, and I think it will be important not just now, but when the beaches reopen and moving into the coming months.
So the next question kind of, what are your 3 greatest opportunities within your company and outside of your company for a vacation rental manager when facing a challenge like the pandemic? Have you guys spotted any opportunities, not just within your company, but also externally for a vacation rental manager facing this?
I'll throw one out, although I would never ask for these opportunities ever again. But one opportunity is to connect with your owners. If you haven't been connecting with them, this is your time to be a hero, and to not just be a hero, but be in front of them with a voice. I mentioned on the podcast that I recorded a video, well, 2 videos, I guess now, I don't know, for owners. And while it felt funny to record a video of yourself talking to owners, that comes across so much better than just emails that sound corporate-y to your owners. And so one opportunity is to reconnect with them. You have time, right? Like, we're kind of bored right now. So you could be calling them, reaching out to them, making sure you have a relationship. Because Tim and I were saying that the way you react to this will be remembered by them.
So the homeowner piece, that was another thing that we talked about in the last session, is do you think you'll become more homeowner centric out of this than you have been? And also, do you think you'll become more guest centric than you have been through this? I mean, do you think there will be a shift to more of a homeowner side or more of a guest side, or even like a more attention on both, more investment into both sides of it?
The only thing I would say to that is I've had to be more firm with owners about what we're going to do. Like, you have to take the leadership role, because this is uncharted territory. We don't know what we're doing. And so you have to kind of be like, hey, owners, this is how it's going to go down, instead of, what do you think? And all loosey goosey. But I think we're going to be more guest focused for a while, because I think we're going to go into a bit of a recession.
That's interesting. Real estate too, do you think the real estate side will be affected?
I guess I'm the only one with sales here, so I can say
I
that
have them
our,
too.
that's right, I'm sorry. So in terms of real estate sales, things have obviously cooled. Typically, there's about a 45-day leeway between contract and closing. And so we've actually had, believe it or not, we had the largest closing in the history of the company last week. Somebody bought a property for nearly $3 million. Who knew that was a thing? In the middle of
Congratulations.
a pandemic. Yeah, it was something. We threw a party for sure, a distance party.
Yeah.
We all stayed in our offices. I do sense, I don't know, I have nothing to base it on. In the last 2 or 3 days, I sense more positivity, and that there may be a light coming our way, that there is some optimism. And so I'm seeing sales agents being more active here in the last few days. And I had somebody approach me about listing a house for sale. So I do think we were in the midst of one of the hottest markets in 20 years. February sales were off the freaking chart. And obviously March and early April probably not going to be there. But when we get back to May and June, in a resort market, there's always stuff for sale. And it will be again. It may not be as hot as it was before, but I think it'll be just fine on the sales side.
Tim, are you
I
seeing any?
agree. I was
No,
going
go
to add, our agents are getting, we have a contract right now from a client who's in Colorado that did a FaceTime with the agent to view the property. So agents are getting creative to find ways to make sure that properties are being marketed and folks are comfortable seeing them. Closing or title companies are doing the same thing and having one person in the office at a time. So it's slower than it had been, but they're still finding a way to make the activity stay up.
Amy, I want to jump back on the question you asked Sarah about opportunities. The person wrote in about that, and she's spot on about the owner thing. I actually got an email from one of my contemporaries here saying, the situation here with the blocked bridge, our North Carolina Real Estate Commission's chief legal counsel sent out a letter that was very definitive that we needed to refund the money to our guests, and not just the rent, the taxes, the insurance, everything they paid goes back to them. It was in very clear language. And I got an email from one of my contemporaries that said, "So how are you handling those owners who are saying that that memo that we received isn't a lawful declaration?" My immediate thought was, you haven't been doing your job of grooming your owners. That's the first thing, that you should have had them on board about this to start with. But in terms of opportunities, another opportunity I think has been with employees. I have not laid anybody off. I have some housekeepers that aren't getting as much work, but I'm trying my best to keep them busy. I have not laid any of my maintenance workers off, even though there's not a lot of work to do. And the currency that has bought me is unbelievable. I shared with Sarah, I had an employee come in almost tearful, thanking me for continuing to be employed. He said, "I am the only person in my family that still has a job, and I will never forget this." And so I think that as well. I typically tend to be pretty calm in the middle of a lot of chaos, and I was absolutely certain that my employees were tantamount to me, and I want to make sure that I assure them as much as I can about what's going to happen. And they all rallied, and they have tremendous loyalty now, and I think in the future.
I want to, because Tim and I, work very close, and he knows what I'm doing in my business. So I want to give everybody a little less of a guilt trip than he just gave in case you had to lay people off. So it really does depend what your seasons are and what your business is. And with the current unemployment payments, we quickly laid off a lot of people, but they're making more than they made with me. So I'm not saying to lay people off. I'm not saying either way, but I think you have to make the decision for your business and what works. It works for Tim. He has a lot of other revenue streams too, that he can put these people on different ways they're making a term, but I think I'm right. Shake your head if I'm right.
Yeah.
And I didn't at first. It was just like, we're bleeding money. So I put them on unemployment, but now we're having them all come back because of this paycheck protection plan. So I feel okay about what I did, even though it was hard to lay them off. They got paid for that. We didn't sink as a company. And now we have this 8 weeks of relief. So I think there's not necessarily one right way. I don't want everyone to hear keep every employee and then you sink your ship.
So, and for us, we have laid people off. We have a number of folks on our team who aren't with us. So I would say if you are in that boat, we are trying to stay in touch with them. So we had been sending some letters. We weren't sure how long this would last. We actually created a Facebook page for them. And this week, Sheila and I did a video for them just to update them on what's happening with the company and what we're trying to do as far as the Payroll Protection Act and the economic disaster loans, and just trying to engage them. They're still a part of our family, even though they're not working with us. So we want to make sure that they don't feel left out or just kind of left lingering. So that this week and the past couple of days, we've had a number of them engaged that way, and it's been a great way to keep up the communication.
I have another question. Are owners renting, are any of you renting to essential workers, healthcare, grocery workers, first responders? None of
I'm
you
not
jump.
right now.
So let's see. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling. Tim, I totally understand your position in a destination. How about guidance for a company in urban destination that pivots to just helping house those who are coming in for a COVID response? Where would you walk that line? Honestly, I see both sides of the equation, being part of the solution by housing people who need to be in the city, but also not being popular with the neighbors. I guess this goes back to your discussion about making the decision you made in your market when your competitors were not.
Yep. And I actually was approached by, I'll say, a federal agency that asked if we would rent to people that were going to send to our area. As it happens, they didn't send anybody, but that was an easy one for me. I thought that would be a good thing, and I didn't think people would be shaming them. I actually, it turns out a lot of those people have turned out to be heroes in this. And so I'd be glad to do it now if anybody's out there looking for a place in Virginia Beach.
There's nothing, in Florida, we're allowed to accept 30-day rentals. And I actually am glad you brought this up, Michelle. We're allowed to accept 30-day rentals in accordance with an executive order. Are you letting people book 30 days? Have any of you gone to long-term stays?
We don't have demand for it. In Florida, we could do 30 days. In Alabama, we could too. We don't normally do 30-day rentals in April. We do them traditionally September through March. We could make an exception, but there's no demand in our market for that right now.
I think that this is a few years ago, and some of you may remember this. There was a big issue about squatting. So this is back when Airbnb first started, and everybody was trying to learn how to game the system on Airbnb, but they would end up booking people for 30-day stays. And then, of course, eviction rules kick in on the real estate side, or I guess on the regulatory side. So I was wondering, in this, now that we have a no eviction regulation through for 90 days, you couldn't even, like, if somebody were in there, if your state I'm sorry, I'm not speaking right anymore. I give up.
You've only been doing this for 8 hours.
If you were in one of those states that, if you stayed at a property for 30 days, you were a tenant and it required eviction for you to leave. And now we can't evict people. Hypothetically, somebody could rent a rental for 30 days and be in there for 6 months and you couldn't get them out. I'm just hypothetically, I don't know. And I don't know if Florida is one of those states, but that squatting thing was a real problem a few years back. Once you got people in, that they actually wouldn't leave. Have you guys? Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I just, from a risk standpoint, I think that would be a risk that I would be looking into. It's one thing if it snowbirds in February, you know what I mean, running 30, 60 days. But right now, I mean, don't you think some guests know they could get into a property for 30 days and live there rent free for 6 months?
This did happen to us maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where we had a monthly renter who did not want to leave and was trying to get us to go through the eviction process, which anytime we have a guest who breaks a license agreement, we've done evictions before, right? Spring breakers have a party or someone does something that they're not supposed to do. And it was an ordeal. And after that experience, both of our cities implemented an ordinance that protects the vacation rental from going through the eviction process, because we are not renting homes and residences for permanent occupancy. They're vacations, they're short-term stays. So it's special language that we put inside of our license agreement with the guests that they agree to when they rent with us, that allows us to evict them if they break the rules of that agreement. So I would encourage folks possibly to look into that if your area doesn't have it, to protect you not only now, but just in general when you have long-term renters who do that. But I will say on this topic, last week, our team is still doing their routine property checks, and I'm proud of our team. Last week, one of our property reps went to one of our beach homes and caught a burglary in process. These folks were actually occupying the property. They had taken showers there. They were not supposed to be there. They had welcomed themselves to the sound bar, and I'm sure had plans to welcome themselves to more. And those folks were arrested and charged with 4 different counts. And there was an opportunity for our city, our police chief, to say, listen, we may have stay-at-home orders, but our police are out there. They're active. We're patrolling. You still have to be a law-abiding citizen. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to continue protecting the assets that we manage, our owner assets, and to have a voice to folks, if you're allowed, if you're considered essential and you're allowed to be out, to make sure that you are visible and people know that you're still there and you're doing your job.
I was noting back a few years ago in Gatlinburg in the off season, they were having a lot of burglaries too. And it was when you mentioned that on the phone, I thought about it later. I was like, there was, when people know a bunch of homes are empty and they're not inhabited, and you've got a recession type environment where people are hungry, for lack of a better term, you know what I mean, that they're in a situation where maybe their moral codes are not where they normally would be. I think that you see this kind of activity, and it was interesting to me to hear you say that you had that experience. Tim, Sarah, have you heard about any kind of crime in uninhabited homes in your markets?
We haven't, but we're patrolling, I guess you'd say, and I know some other vacation rental companies are. We don't usually have crime anyway where we are, and unemployment's so good that everyone's getting money, but I think it's really important for the owners, even if there is no thought of crime, even if it's not happening what happened to Michelle, that you're patrolling, taking pictures and sending those to owners, and or even just texting owners and saying, we went by your home today, because all of them, most of them can't come here, and they're wondering about that asset. So again, this is another way for you to emotionally connect with the owner and be reaching out to them saying, I went to your home today, or I drove by, or look at the picture. Because yes, you are, but they need to know you are, right? Just don't assume that they know you're taking care of their home.
From us here on the Outer Banks particularly, and Sandbridge as well, I guess, we've seen that as an opportunity as well to reach back out to our owners and, for lack of a better word, sell them security inspections. Certainly we've done drive-bys, but in the case where an owner wants more detail, we've actually been going in properties, and we actually had 2 properties that we found, one with a water heater bladder that had burst and another where a pipe had burst within a wall. As it turns out, we happened to be on scene within hours, as somebody was looking out for us above. But again, those owners were glad they had security inspections ordered. We typically would do it in the wintertime when nobody's here. We never thought about it in April and maybe in May, but it's worked out very well for us. And so I guess we'll see about the crime because we haven't been in a lot of houses. We've driven by them, but who knows? Well, I guess we'll be prepared for that if that's the case.
But operations question for the presenters. When rentals are permitted, let's say it's in July, and we are all used to Saturday turnovers, do they see being able to honor checkout, check-ins the same day? If not, how do we honor some and not others? Tim, you have a lot of 7-day.
I do. And this is interesting. I have no intention of changing the arrival and departure dates. We're contracted again in North Carolina. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time. When I hear some of the questions, I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to us. We have lease agreements that are binding on both parties. And so they arrive on Saturday, they leave on Saturday. But what we are going to most likely do as a company is eliminate the early check-in part of that. We have sold early check-ins, and I'll tell you, it's $119,000 to my bottom line to allow them to arrive at 1 o'clock or what have you. We are going to across the board cancel that, I believe. We just can't sanitize and properly clean the property the way it needs to be done in a 3-hour period. I fully expect our crews will be in there much longer because we found the product we use to sanitize does a great job, but it has to stay on the door handle for 3 minutes before you wipe it off. Multiply that by how many light switches, remote controls, faucets, flat surfaces. It needs to be on there for 3 minutes before the germs are killed. And so, you might joke and say 3 minutes, that's more time than they spent in the house in the first place. At any rate, that's not the case. But at any rate, I don't see how we're going to be able to honor 1 o'clock check-ins. But we have that 6-hour window, out at 10, in at 4, and I'm hopeful people will give us some leeway on that.
Just a comment on your real estate stuff is, we put over $3 million under contract last week. People who have money in luxury markets still do. And with stocks tanking, they're buying real estate. Michelle, you closed on your house, right?
Yes, I didn't have enough going on, so I this was in the works already before all of this started. But I actually did. I bought a house and I'm selling a house all in the middle of this. So 2 contracts plus the coronavirus.
Which and a newlywed.
Yeah, my brand new husband is learning how I roll at high stress levels right now.
Michelle's never doing another webinar with me ever again. I have a couple of paycheck protection program questions, PPP questions. One is, we're in the tough spot with the PPP program. We have a shutdown on non-essential businesses, which means we can't be in the office or conducting maintenance or deep cleans in our homes. We have been approved for the PPP program, and our 8-week clock starts next week. There's no way I can spend 75% of the loan on payroll unless within the next 8 weeks due to the shutdown order. Is anyone else in the same position?
Well, do you know what state that person's from?
Don't actually. It could be Florida, since theirs is not an essential business.
That's a tough one because Colorado considers essential businesses as taking care of properties, and a couple other lines in their exceptions that let us do deep cleans, hot tubs, carpet cleans, and property maintenance. So if I didn't have that, I'd be in a tough place because our loan starts Monday and we're going to do 8 weeks of deep cleans and property care. Then that's how I'm going to spend a lot of that money. What's interesting about this PPP, and I am no expert, and let me tell you, I think I get it and then I don't get it, but you're allowed to pay someone even if they're not working. I mean, so you can decide, like Tim, since he doesn't lay anyone off, he might decide to pay some people and they're sitting at home not doing a lot. I don't know. Like, that's tough, but it is forgiven money. And if the person for some reason wants to work versus do unemployment, you know, I guess that's the way to go. As far as if you can't go out to the properties and you only have office staff, I do think that there are so many things office staff can be doing right now. It's all those things that used to say, oh, if there was only enough time, we would do this or we would do that. So all the people you can get to do computer work, I say create 1 million projects and get it going for those 8 weeks.
Question for Judith: how would you handle things if there is no summer season? Tell me, if this didn't come back in the summer, where would you be?
You know, I am really a
Selling
very
real
positive.
estate.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Sorry.
I am a very positive person most of the time, and I agree. I say again, I don't think it matters what happens is as important as how you react to what happens. But I refuse to speculate. People have gone off the deep end about what if, and you know, how about this? I am dealing with today. Today is the 16th of April. We still have 2 weeks left in this month. Let's get to May, and then let's get to May 15th, and let's get to Memorial Day. Again, I had nothing to base it on other than just the luck of the Irish, of the Cafferty clan. I just feel like we are turning the corner, and it may not be the same as what we had hoped for June or July, but I just will not allow that kind of thinking. And it comes up in my family sometimes, like, no, 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 today's the day. You know, we're thinking about today. Let's not drive ourselves crazy.
I'm going to get one more in before I go meet with the Australian crowd, which I'm actually really excited about. Figure out what COVID's doing down under. So it's Larry Hopper says, when do they think would be a good time to start guest marketing? Plus, Larry Hopper is asking Sarah how much snow she has on the ground.
Wait, I didn't hear the question because I got so overwhelmed. It was Larry Hoffer, because I don't know if he remembers this, but he met me at my husband's bar early on when I started our company before we even moved to Winter Park. And he said, Sarah, come with me, come to my company, don't start your own. I did it. So Larry, I have my own company. But okay, what was his question?
He said, when do you think would be a good time to start guest marketing? Plus, he's asking you how much snow you have.
Oh yeah, when to start marketing again? Is that the okay?
Yeah.
We have way too much snow. I think 6 inches. We want it to melt. It was interesting because I heard on another webinar today that you were having, is someone said they're e-blasting a lot, and you know, email marketing, they're doing it. And where I am, it feels really inappropriate to be email marketing. So I think that's, again, for different areas. Like Tim's area might open up in May and he should go for it, right? But who knows what's happening in our area. To me right now, sending marketing messages out, other than, you know, we can't wait to see you someday when we can have you back, feels awkward to me. So I don't really have an answer to that one.
I have several other questions that, if it's okay, I would like to address, send to you guys, and you can either put them on the podcast and we'll share that, or we can do written answers and put them on VRM Intel, or both, quite honestly. So if it's okay with you guys, we'll work on these offline, but we will get them answered.
What do Michelle, can I just ask quick, what do Michelle and Tim think about marketing right now?
We have been marketing. It's the type of marketing that we're doing. So we're trying to give people peaceful images of the Gulf, right? People relate to our area because it's the place for relaxation and solitude. And so through Facebook and social media, without any sales messaging, we're trying to give them little bits of that. We were doing sounds of the waves, or recently we've been sharing Gulf-oriented art projects, how to make little sea turtles, different kind of lighthearted sorts of things just to give folks a piece of the beach while they can't be here. But we're also starting to talk about things that we've never talked about before because they're not pretty and they're not glamorous. So it's not sales marketing, but we've never talked about our commercial laundry with our guest base before and how we launder their sheets, because most of the time no one wants to think about that. So we're putting pieces together that are marketing, they're informational, they're just not hard sales. And so we're going to continue doing that sort of thing until we think it is appropriate to do sales-based marketing, which will come to some degree when the beaches are open and folks can come back down here. So there's opportunity to market and keep yourself out there without being harsh or inconsiderate. Right.
And I'll give you a 15-second answer real quick. We have a lot of stuff in the hopper. We're ready to shoot out. Image marketing only right now. And I would direct people to look at what Jamaica is doing right now. They put out some stuff that's really beautiful, saying, we can't welcome you now, but we look forward to seeing you soon, man. And so I thought that was very effective. So that's kind of where we are mentally on that.
Note for later, Tim and Sarah, Jamaican call centers. Anyway. You guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you stepping in last minute when we decided to pivot and make this more of a PM, less vendor, kind of less pundit discussion. And I really, really appreciate it.
Good thing we didn't have a script.
No, really.
I can take my jacket off now. Good.
And obviously, I mean, this is our game show crowd from VRMA, if you were there. We need to pitch something else for Orlando if we're all going back this year. So,
hey,
also,
I just want to say before you cut us off, Amy, that from all of us, thank you for these 2 days of webinars. Thank you for everything you and your team have put together. This took a lot of effort, and I think that energy is a hard thing to find right now. So way to go, because it has just been comforting to listen to the discussions all day long, and we appreciate what you do for the industry.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm not going to cry yet. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye, guys.